If you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better.
Hello, Ken Bennett.
Hello, guys.
How are you? So listen, guys, Jeff has, how much time do you have, Jeff? 30 minutes or?
Yep. I got a little before 4.
Okay.
My time. Yeah.
Okay. So welcome, everybody. This is 4 Men in America. We are already recording, guys. So we got Jeff and Paul and Ken with us today. And I sent a note out to you guys, and I don't know if you all saw it, that I wondered what subject you might want to bring up and discuss, each one of you today. So anybody want to lead off with anything they want to talk about? Or
I wanted to say a couple things. One, I wanted to thank Ken for doing a great job. I hadn't had time to thank him publicly. I did privately. For the great job that he did in his presentation for Heirs of the Republic. And it really is neat to have somebody present that is so intimately familiar with the subject and topic. And, people have questions like, hey, I thought this was the way it did it. Ken's really quick, no, this is the way it does it. And you don't have to go through conspiracy theories or the money's big. Ken just knows it, because he was a part of it, and I was very grateful for that. So thank you.
I'm glad he got to do that, because I knew that would be a big hit. It's really a good presentation, and it brings it down to grade school level. So
well, Don, I ended up doing two. Presentations.
Yeah, you did two.
Jeff, you're very welcome. I did the budget boxes. They used to be Kleenex boxes. Now they're Amazon shipping boxes, because
right.
They're a little shorter and they don't go through the ceiling of any room that I'm in. But I also did a presentation that I'm not sure you've ever seen, Don. Have you ever seen the presentation where I show who does what in elections in Arizona? There's 4 big boards, and then I've got all these color-coded cards, and one color is the county recorder, and one color is the Secretary of State, and another color is the Board of Supervisors. There's 7 or 8 different colors. And I think the people enjoyed that almost as much as the budget boxes, didn't they, Jeff?
I think they did, because it was so informative. And the one question I wasn't able to ask you, but I think I knew the answer to, because Ken had all these boards up and who's in charge of what process. And the voting process is extremely complicated. And the question, because we could have stayed there, people weren't ready to leave, but we ran out of time of the place that we rent to visit. And it was, within that whole chain of voting, where is the greatest opportunity for fraud? In that whole, if you go through all those boards and who's responsible for what and these kind of things. And I think if one identifies that and then tries to start plugging the gap, this is the greatest potential threat. This is the next greatest potential threat. Then that's probably one way to start to solve some of these problems.
Right.
Yeah. No, I have not seen that presentation, Ken. So
fantastic. It is fantastic.
I break up the election into 4 main sections. The first section of elections is registering voters. Then the next section is how do candidates get on the ballot? And then the next third section is how do we get the ballots to and back from the voters? And then the fourth section is how do we count the ballots? And, the registering of voters is predominantly county recorders. How candidates get on the ballot is kind of a mishmash of all different things, including voters signing petitions and candidates filing paperwork and all kinds of stuff. The how do we get the ballots to the voters? And some of them get it by mail, some come into polling locations. But setting up the ballots is primarily the responsibility of the county elections department, and which operates under the Board of Supervisors.
Right.
And then it's that county elections department that has the main responsibility of counting the ballots and programming the machines. And I think people were fascinated to find out, for example, that just in one county alone in Arizona, Maricopa County, the big one that includes the Phoenix area, for them to conduct a typical election, because all the voters in Maricopa County live in different cities and they live in different Board of Supervisor districts and they live in different school districts and they live in different fire districts and all of that. The elections department in Maricopa County has to program over 15,000 ballot styles. And then they have to program the machines to recognize and read those ballot styles correctly. And so it is a monumental task to get all of that right. And sometimes people make mistakes. I was just down making a presentation to Cochise County. And in their last main election a year and a half ago, 2024, there was a very hotly contested race for one of the three county supervisors. And the lady, a Republican, Cochise has kind of been two Republicans and one Democrat on their 3-member Board of Supervisors for a long time. But this last election, a Republican won that third seat. And so now it's all 3 Republicans in Cochise County. But it was a very hotly contested race. Well, unfortunately, the elections department forgot to put on the ballots that went to the precinct for the lady that was running for county supervisor as a Republican, her race was left off of the ballots that went to her precinct. And so there was this big hullabaloo, and the county had to quickly reprint, a couple thousand more ballots for that precinct only. I think Cochise has 70 something precincts or whatever, but somehow on one precinct, they left off the county supervisor race. But it was in the precinct where a lady who was running lived in that precinct. So she gets her ballot, and I'm sure was anxious to see her name on the ballot and cast a vote for herself. And it was nowhere to be found.
Wow.
So
all her conspiracy theories were validated.
Oh man, yeah. So anyway, but to answer your question, Jeff, I think that the top, let me give you what I think is the top 2 potential areas for lack of integrity in our elections. The number one is some nefarious group, probably would be a very small group of people inside the election department that have access to the election management system. They're called EMSs. There's about 7 different companies in the country that have election systems. Everybody knows about Dominion because it was, in the news, but there's the biggest one, I think, is ES&S, Election Systems and Software. But the last proven election manipulation that I'm aware of was in Shelby County, Tennessee in about 2008, I think it was, where some people inside the county elections department were going in to the EMS system and moving votes from one candidate to another, keeping the total number of votes the same so that that check and balance didn't get out of whack. But they were literally moving, after the votes had been tabulated at the polling locations, they were moving votes from one candidate to another. And a guy who is now he's now a Tennessee State Elections Commissioner. His name is Benny Smith. He came out to the Maricopa audit that we had 5 years ago or 4 years, whenever that was. And he was at a polling location in Shelby County. This is Memphis, Tennessee. He was at a polling location at about 7 o'clock when the polls closed. And when the polls close, you push a button on those machines and it runs a total for all of the activity that happened during the election day. And it spits out a little receipt, big long receipt. It's, several feet long. How many votes were cast in every race, and how many votes did Jones get, and how many did Garcia get, and it gives you these totals of all the stuff that it thinks it counted during the election that day. He happened to snap a picture of this total tape on his phone, and he went back home and was watching the community access channel late that night, and that precinct came up, and the total number of votes that they had counted was correct. But the votes for candidate A and votes for candidate B had been shifted. Somebody had shifted 200 votes from A and given them to B. So he goes down to the elections department the next morning, and to make a long story short, he caught the county elections department of Shelby County, Tennessee. Somebody was manipulating the vote after the ballots had been counted in each of the voting locations. And Bloomberg did a big expose on it 10, 15 years ago. It's called Fraction Magic, where they were just moving votes from, and they found out that somebody in the elections department was doing this in 21 different precincts.
Wow.
Where they were moving votes from their less desired candidate. And Benny is African American, but one of the reasons he was kind of watching is that nobody could figure out why blacks in Shelby County kept losing races when Shelby County is 70% black. And
somebody was cheating.
Somebody was moving votes from one candidate to another, and he caught him because he happened. So the biggest problem is, to really manipulate election, you almost have to have collusion inside of the election infrastructure, the department. Now, that's hard to do because there's a lot of good people that work in elections that would blow the whistle on somebody trying to do something nefarious like that in a hurry. And then the second most concerning area is people getting registered who are not eligible to be registered to vote.
How about the custody of the mail-in ballots, though? Ken, you have so many going out, and a lot of people don't collect them, or they get sent to a wrong address, and perhaps somebody filling them in, or ballot harvesting. Where would that come?
Well, in Arizona, 90 days before an election, any county that is planning to send a ballot by mail to a voter has to send that voter a card confirming that they're still at the address and that they still want a ballot mailed to them.
Yeah.
And if that card comes back undelivered,
yeah, then they don't mail it there.
They don't mail it. So, and I think we can do a better job on signature checking. I actually think it's totally arcane that we verify people's identity by asking them to sign the envelope and then comparing that to a voter registration document they may have signed 20 years ago.
Right.
I mean, I just did a refinance on our house up in Utah. And so I was working with a realtor online. I was working with notaries online. I was working with banks online. And whenever I would do something, they knew what phone number I had. And so when I'd get online with the online notary, I got a text message says, give me the 6-digit code that our system just sent you to verify that it really went to who it's supposed to go to. And I had to type in a 6-digit code that I just received a minute and a half earlier on my phone. And I think we need to do a much better job verifying that people who want to receive their ballot by mail. Now, see, I get my ballot by mail, but I don't mail it back in. I take it in personally. But I think we can do a much better job of verifying that stuff that's happening by mail is really happening with the people who are authorized to vote.
Yeah, I know. I'll comment here about it. You guys watched that video. Oklahoma Senator James Langsford, I think his name is. He said that in Oklahoma, you have to take your mail-in ballot down to a notary and get it notarized.
Really?
And show your ID, and then you can mail it in. That's how they verify.
There's talk in Arizona, and the SAVE Act, the Save America Act in Congress has a provision in there that says if you're going to send your ballot in by mail, you have to send a copy of your driver's license in with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just like if you go vote at a polling location, whether
you got to show it. Yeah.
You got to show your
that would
driver's
certainly
license.
cut down on fraud. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would.
Good. Yeah.
Hey, well, Don, 2 things before I've got to go. I'm very frustrated. You believe it or not, it's a given. I'm frustrated with the Democrats. Okay. So that's a staple daily product. And I think it's a shame at this time that we are in essence at war with Iran. And I know we're not trying to call it a war because nobody wants to declare war anymore. But I still believe the president has the delegated authority to do what he's doing. And that's through the Constitution, through the War Powers Act, and through, precedent of what's happening.
Sure.
To a certain extent. But so I do think that is, but I am frustrated that the Republicans are allowing the Democrats for the second time in less than a year and a half into Trump's presidency to run the country because of the filibuster.
Yeah.
And we are held hostage. We are allowing him to do this. And this is really thwarting what we're trying to do. And I've presented, I think, to 3 different Pinal County precinct committeemen, had training last Saturday. I was at the GOP Pima Club and others. And, we're letting the tail wag the dog. I'd encourage anybody who's listening to this podcast to go read Federalist number 22. And this is not the way the government's supposed to be run. And the higher authority is the Constitution, not a self-regulating rule that the Senate has imposed upon itself that was never intended to be used as a weapon to thwart government from acting in the best benefit for the people. And so this has been abused. It needs to be taken away, and it is really undermining Trump's presidency, period.
Yeah, and that's why they're doing it.
And that's why they're doing it, and we're not waking up. And I got to tell you, if somebody's killed because of, or something happens because of this, the Republicans are going to point at the Democrats, and the Democrats are responsible. But I got to tell you, the Republicans are responsible too, because they've already allowed the government to be shut down almost 45 days. The Democrats want this because they want to hurt America, so the Republicans lose power. And it really is a shame that we've gotten to this point in this nation, that this is where we're at, that it is, Washington warned us of it. It's been partisan politics, and that is the priority over nation.
Sure. We've been harping on the filibuster on this program for 6 months, right? Trying to get people Do the right thing. Yeah.
And then the second thing, so I just getting that on record. And the second thing is when I teach the Constitution, I taught a little bit this week of why we take the oath. What does it mean? And how do we better support and defend? And I was surprised at the group that I talked to this week, who were all conservative Republicans, and all of them seemed to know what it meant when I asked the question. But when we got into the details, they really didn't. And it surprised me. And so hopefully we'll have more time on another podcast to get into when you raise your right arm, what does it mean to say that you support and defend the Constitution? What
Yeah.
are the belief systems you have to have? And, in a nutshell, it means you believe in federalism. It means you believe in limited government. It
Yeah.
means you believe in the tenets and the ideals, vision, and values of the Declaration of Independence. And I could go on and on. But what it really means, the first fundamental and priority of what it means to be an American, is that we believe that liberty is our first priority.
Yeah.
And we created the Constitution to preserve the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. And the number one reason we have a Constitution is to preserve unalienable rights that our Constitution is meant to protect by not trusting those in power. And so if you are a communist, you cannot raise your right arm to the square and say you support and defend the Constitution. That's
Right.
like a Muslim saying he wants to get baptized as a Catholic. It's not congruent.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we got into the argument, well, you could probably be a socialist and still believe, because a communist, their first priority is not liberty. It is not freedom. And then I got into a little bit of an argument with somebody. Well, the socialist could, and I'm like, the Sweden's a socialist country, and we vote in taxes. And I'm just suggesting this: no, I don't believe that you can honestly say you support and defend the Constitution if freedom is not your highest priority in protecting unalienable rights as a government agent in any position whatsoever. Not to say that safety does not preempt that sometimes, but it is the exception rather than the rule. And most Americans, when you ask them what is the proper role of government, immediately they say to keep us safe. And that is wrong. It is a wrong answer. It is part of what the proper role of government is, to protect the providers from the plunderers. That's right. But that is to keep our liberty. Okay. As Madison wrote on his essay, Property, the proper role of government is to protect our private property, not take us from it. So I do not believe a Swedish official who believes in socialism could raise their right arm to the square and say that they support and defend the Constitution. And I really think that communists should not be allowed to hold office in the United States. And I don't
Any
think
office.
any office
Yeah.
that requires an oath. And I do not think socialists. And so when you have somebody like Mamdani, who is the mayor of New York City,
Yeah. You just
and
disqualified him.
he is disqualified.
Yeah.
He should be, because he does not maintain the values of what it means to be an American, and you cannot raise your arm to the square and say you support and defend the Constitution. But we do not know what it means to support and defend the Constitution.
Yeah.
We don't understand what the oath means. The people have forgotten it. Our elected officials have forgotten it. And so anyway, those things have really gotten under my spur this week. And
sounds like good
yeah.
good advice and good stuff, because it's I had those notes. I had those things down in my notes too, because I knew you guys would want to talk about it. Going back to the election things, they heard the case about election day in SCOTUS this week, right?
Yeah.
And it sounded like
about
most of the
mail-in ballots coming in after
Right.
Yeah, about
Anyway,
election day is election day, and
it should
you
be
can't count
very
votes after
clear.
election
Yeah.
day. Yeah,
Yeah. Very
yeah.
clear. Guys, I got
So,
to run. Love you all.
okay.
And
All right,
all right.
Jeff.
Thanks,
We love
guys.
you
Hope to
too.
see you next week.
Take care. Yeah.
Take care.
So, yeah, it was about that, Ken. Yeah, taking in mail-in ballots and counting them after they're received after midnight of the election day. So the questioning, according to the what do you call it, prognosticators, right?
Uh-huh.
They seem to think that most of the justices, not 100%, because we know who's there, but most of them seem to think that election day meant election day. So yeah, it was interesting.
Well,
So
to
we'll
me,
see.
you've got to have a cutoff. I mean, some states say that if it was postmarked before the election, then you can, accept it up to 2 weeks. Well, why
Yeah,
not 2 months? Why not 2 years?
yeah.
So
And
to me, you've got to have,
California does 2 months or a month or until it.
which is
They don't really
ridiculous.
have an end to it. They just keep counting them until they stop coming. So
Well,
right, yeah, and that includes in some states they register voters after the election and let them vote. So yeah, well, we can't disenfranchise anybody. So right.
yeah, right.
Anyway, yeah, that was good news that they hopefully they'll make a quick decision, and I'm kind of hoping they come out with something on birthright citizenship and make their decision on that. Like Zach says, they keep wringing their hands about something that ought to be pretty straightforward. So anyway, um, okay, so do either one of you guys, Paul or Ken, do you have a particular thing you wanted to discuss this week? Ken's raising his hand.
No, I want to hear from Paul because
Okay, okay.
I haven't heard one word out of Paul yet. I want to make
Yeah,
sure
we
he's
got,
still alive.
yeah, Paul.
This
So,
is not an easy crowd to get into. I'm going to have to go and take some vitamins or something. No, I wanted to follow up on what Jeff was saying about the oath. One of the things that has been was called, and that is that you can't take the oath if you don't believe in an afterlife and a God, because it's of no value if you swear an oath to God, but you don't think there's going to be any punishment for it because there is no God. Or your God says it's okay to lie if it furthers your religion, which is what the Muslims do. So that's why, as far as I'm concerned, no practicing Muslim could ever raise their right hand and swear an oath to God to obey to protect and defend the Constitution, because it's in their book that you can lie in order to further the religion. So that was something that I think is important. In fact, I think I read somewhere that one of the early colonies or states actually made it a law that nobody could hold a government position if they weren't a practicing religious person, because if you don't believe in God, the oath doesn't mean anything. So
yeah.
that evidently has been wiped out. But my rant for today.
Yeah, okay. Let's hear your rant. Go,
all right,
man.
it's the idea of using the Reconciliation Act to get the Save America Act passed, because it's just and I was listening to a guy this morning, and his comments were pretty much on my feelings too. That Thune is looking for an out. He doesn't want to pass it, but he can't not pass it because it'll cost him his job, either as the majority leader or as a senator. And so he's kind of trying to find a way to hold the vote and have it fail and be able to point at somebody. In this case, it would be the parliamentarian, because a Reconciliation Act is a financial act, and you can't make policy using reconciliation, according to what I've been hearing. So that's my rant, is that I've been sending notes to John. We're almost on a first name basis now. He gets a note from me pretty much every day saying, "Get off your ass and get this thing passed." I don't know if he's going to come see me or not, but maybe he's just in the FBI. But anyway, this is a terrible thing. I mean, it really is. The fact that we have to do this is a terrible thing. And the fact that the Democrats won't let it happen is a terribler thing.
Mm-hmm.
In the print.
Terribler. Yeah. No, I agree. And you, I think, I don't know about Thune. I haven't, I've tried to I digest all this, some of the things that went on this week, and I heard about the reconciliation thing, and I listened to Senator Kennedy, from Louisiana, and he said you would be surprised what you can pass under reconciliation. He says I can think of things that I didn't think had a chance in hell of passing under reconciliation, and they did. So he said our lawyers, there's a bunch of lawyers on both sides up there, right? There's Democrat lawyers and there's Republican lawyers, and they all think they're right. So he wondered about that too, but he said he wouldn't be surprised if they did pass it under reconciliation, if they found some way to do it. So
what this guy said was they can pass parts of it,
yeah,
but not going to be able to get the whole bill through unscathed, because the parliamentarian will say this doesn't have anything to do with finances and this doesn't have anything to do with finances.
Yeah.
Remember, she blasted us one time. I can't remember what the bill was, but
Yeah.
she came out and said you can't do X, Y, and Z,
yeah,
and they took it out of the bill and made the bill pablum.
yeah, yeah.
Had no teeth.
Well, I think that they took some stuff out of the big beautiful bill because of the parliamentarians. So
yeah, I think that was it.
And they're the kind of the coverall for the weak-kneed senators that need that cover. They'll go ahead and process something knowing that the parliamentarian will kick it out. So I don't know what's going to happen in the Senate. It's really a crapshoot, and it's unfortunate, but they should definitely get the DHS funding done under the reconciliation. Yeah, that should be done. I mean, that ought to be automatic. So I think Senator Kennedy and I'm trying to think of the senator from what's the Texas senator's name? Not Corbin, but the other one.
Cruz and Corbin.
Ted Cruz. Yeah, they're pushing to do it under reconciliation. So it's. I don't know. It's just disappointing. They don't realize how much time they're burning, how much time they're wasting. And, going back to the oath thing, I'm trying to think of what kind of punishment is there in the civilian world? Because in the military world, there is a punishment under the UCMJ for violating your oath, right? But not in the civilian world. If you take a civilian post, a government post, and swear to the oath, I don't know that I've ever heard of anybody ever getting punished for violating their oath of office. I don't know if there is a way to punish anybody. So
it's not legal.
Yeah, they don't. And the on the Muslim side, they'll just take the oath on the Quran and that clears. They think that clears them of any violation of the oath, right?
Right.
So,
Well, they can say
you mean
anything.
Take the oath, putting their hand on a copy of the Quran? What do you mean, oath on the Quran?
Yeah, they put their hand on a copy of the Quran and they swear on the Quran, instead of saying swear to God.
Because to me, whatever book or thing that you're putting one hand on, to me, is irrelevant.
Yeah,
it's your right hand raised up is where you swear, and to me, the oath is not better or worse or in effect or not in effect because of the book or the lack of book that you choose to put your other hand on. To me, the oath is not controlled or enforceable by the document that you have some other hand on, because some people don't put. To me, an oath is an oath, and it's not what your other hand is sitting on.
Yeah, it's just a character.
There is no constitutional requirement for the Bible. It's a tradition that George Washington started.
Yeah,
and he's the one that also added "So help me God," because that's not in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're right.
It also says with no mental reservation or purpose of evasion. And if you're a Muslim who's trying to make this part of the world caliphate, you have a mineral reservation and a purpose of evasion. So
Yeah.
you're lying your ass off and ought to be booted or never put in a position where you can.
Yeah.
Well, even
So
us as Judeo-Christian, I'm curious how the three of us would answer the question, is there ever a situation where the law of God, however you interpret that to be, should take precedence over the law of the land?
It always should.
Okay, so aren't we as Christians subject to the same potential criticism that, well, if there's a conflict between a bill or a law or a state statute or something and what I believe in my religion, either as a general Christian or a specific denomination of Christianity, is there a potential conflict with Christians just as we are being, I think, appropriately concerned about Muslims putting the Muslim faith before their allegiance to the country?
That's an interesting thought, Ken. But I believe you have to go around the circle and remember that this country was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. The Bible was used as a source for 34% of the Constitution was sourced from the Bible,
Yeah.
and that's the bedrock. If it's in the good book, it should be in the law, and if it's in the law, you shouldn't have to violate your Christian principles to break a law, or you shouldn't be accused of breaking a law if you're following Christian principles. That's the way it should be. Now, you've got courts that won't agree with me. The bearing false witness. There's a phrase about that in the Bible, and we see people lying to Congress under oath all the time, and rarely are they ever busted for it.
Yeah.
But
so think about the Ten Commandments, right? If there was anything in our laws that violated the Ten Commandments, but most of our laws fall in line with the Ten Commandments. Most of the things in the Ten Commandments are like thou shalt not kill, right? Well, yeah, it's against the law to kill.
Okay, I'm glad you picked that one, Paul. One of my favorite movies is Hacksaw Ridge.
There you go.
Conscientious objector, yeah.
And it's about a conscientious objector who says, I'm not going to carry a weapon.
Yeah.
And the gist of that whole story is that he was not required to pass rifle training in order to pass basic training because he was exempted under his conscientious objector thing. So therein is a situation where we have recognized an exception to the standard laws or procedures we apply to all soldiers. We're going to make an exception for somebody who, as a Seventh-day Adventist or whatever he was, I think that's what he was, says, I interpret the commandment, thou shalt not kill, so literally that I'm not, I want to serve in the military, but I'm not going to do so carrying a weapon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there we let someone's religious conviction supersede at least one aspect of the normal training for an American soldier. But
yeah,
one of the Ten Commandments is honor the Sabbath day and keep it holy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we allow federal employees to say, well, I want to be a air traffic controller, but I don't want to have to work on Sundays?
Yeah. Yeah.
No religious
Sure. Yeah.
or Saturdays if you're a Seventh-day Adventist.
Yeah, maybe Friday if you're Jewish.
What? Right.
Yeah.
So
probably somebody
I mean,
claims all three, right?
I just
That'd be-
wanted to bring to our consciousness.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more with what everybody's saying, and that is, um, if a basic tenet of Islam is that supersedes obeying the laws of the land and or being able to swear an oath to defend the laws of the land, starting with the Constitution, then I get really concerned. But I also have to remind, I think, ourselves, and that's, I guess, what I'm doing, that there are times when my Christian belief can differ a little bit from what the law of the land is. I mean, the people,
sure.
60% of the people of Arizona just passed a ballot proposition last year allowing abortions
Yeah.
until the last minute.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing, I mean, it's so sick to me. I just can't hardly believe that I live in a state where 6 out of 10 of my neighbors thought that was okay. But
thought that was okay. Yeah. Yeah, there is a tremendous conflict there between your religious beliefs and your and what is what is a law, that a state law, right? Yeah. Luckily in Florida they couldn't get the 60% in Florida, so it got defeated, but they're going to try to do it again this November, They're working to try to get another vote. So yeah, it's just dangerous stuff. But yeah, I was going to bring that up, Ken. I was going to bring up abortion as the conflict of, people passing laws that allow abortion and the killing of babies and up until the ninth month even. And if you have Christian values, that's certainly you're going to object to that strenuously. Yeah. So yeah, it's and in the military, when the Bible, a lot of Bible characters killed people, right?
Sure.
In self-defense, right? And I always kind of thought about that way in the military, that you're in a position where you have to defend your life, and there's someone over there that wants to kill you. So I was always comfortable with thinking that I have the right of self-defense, and the Bible would let me defend myself if someone was trying to harm me, So
there's a semantics issue too, guys, and that is, I'm told that if you go to the original Hebrew, it says "Thou shalt do no murder," and it doesn't prohibit killing; it prohibits murder. And so, as a soldier, you have a mission. You're not doing murder; you're defending your country or whatever you're doing. But like you said, it's self-defense, and not being a conscientious objector is one thing to do. This also goes back to the COVID mandates, mandate vaccinations. If you have a religious, you have autonomous control of your body, and when the government says you got to take this untested experimental drug into your body, and you say my religion doesn't allow it, then they force it on you. Then they're the ones that have broken the law. So that's my feeling.
Yeah. I never got vaccinated, and I was never in a situation though where I was threatened with the loss of a job or the loss of some freedom if I didn't get vaccinated. I just, was in a position where, and my wife was the same. We just said, no, we're not going to do that. But we had dear loved ones in our families who, when they found out we weren't vaccinated, they wouldn't even be around us.
Yeah.
We were sitting in a car one day visiting with one of Jean's siblings and her spouse, and we were having the most delightful conversation. We hadn't talked to him in a couple years, we're having this delightful conversation right in the middle of COVID about family and nephews and nieces, and and all of a sudden, when it came out about, had we received the COVID vaccine, and Gene and I said no, and we're not gonna. Oh well, we got to go home. I mean, they couldn't get us out of their car fast enough.
Hmm.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, they were brainwashed.
Yeah. That brings something up. I don't know if you guys heard or not, but Calvary Church, Newsom fined the Calvary Church in California several $1,000s a day for holding church services during COVID, right?
Mm.
And that's all come up in front of the Supreme Court now. And the state of California's argument now was, oh, that was a few years ago. It doesn't mean anything anymore. So
Yeah.
you just need to drop it, right? Can you believe that? That's their argument now. That's how nutty those people are. So yeah, they say forget about it. It was a long time ago, and let bygones be bygones. And you're out several $1 million, but we don't. But the Supreme Court shouldn't take it up. So anyway, yeah, they're still fighting it in court. So amazing, yeah. So let me ask you guys your final thoughts about Iran. What's your final thoughts about Iran?
The president better wrap this up quick, and he better finalize I believe 3 or 4 objectives that we can prove we have accomplished, and then we're done. And those 3 or 4 objectives, we're not going to get regime change without putting tens of thousands of soldiers on the ground. And history has proven that the Soviets didn't accomplish that in Afghanistan, and we didn't accomplish that in
Iraq or Afghanistan.
Or Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So to me, the 4 are.
Yeah.
We have to be able to keep the Strait of Hormuz open.
Mm-hmm.
We have to keep them from getting anywhere close to having a nuclear weapon, which means we've got to be able to either secure and remove, or secure and inspect any and all nuclear material that they maintain. And I'd rather just give them what they want for domestic whatever. But to me, it's securing the nuclear stockpile, preventing a nuclear weapon, and securing the Straits of Hormuz. And
no missiles.
I think we have to rely on. I think it's going to take the Israelis taking out enough of the Revolutionary Guard that the Iranian people can raise up without being slaughtered and affect some regime change. And it may not go the way we want it.
Yeah.
But the American people are not going to stand for. Now, I heard today that Trump has come out and said that that's about what he's willing to walk away with. And Bill O'Reilly is verifying that, or agreeing as to why he thinks, those are the 3 or 4 things to do. But we got to get this wrapped up, because we're going to get slaughtered in the. Well, first of all, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But secondly, if it keeps going on like this much longer, the Republicans are going to lose one or both houses, and Trump not going to get anything done the next 2 years.
Yeah. I agree. I think I'm predicting that they're going to wrap it up here, maybe 1 or 2 weeks. I think they've pretty well met all their objectives that they wanted to already. There is a lot of talk about. I've been watching a couple of guys on YouTube that were ex-military. One of them was an F-15 pilot. He has a real good show on YouTube, and he thinks everything's pointing to what I want to say, taking over Carg Island, taking over their domestic oil supply. And once we have that island secured, and the Marines and the 82nd Airborne are going to do that. And once we do that, their whole economy is cut off, right? That is their economy. 90% of their economy comes out from oil loaded up from that island. So that's what he's predicting. But I think they're just about there, Ken. I think you're right, and I think the way he talked today, I think he feels that that we're getting there. So yeah, I think that Vance and I think Witkoff and I think Trump, I think they understand. I really think they understand that. So
I hope so.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, haven't the Iranians said that they're not dealing with Witkoff and Kushner anymore, and they only want to deal with Vance?
Yeah, the Navy guy. You saw the Navy guy yesterday. I think it was yesterday. He was saying that he closed the Straits of Hormuz and we wouldn't talk to anybody. And it wasn't. Well, this morning he's dead. So there's another one that he opened his mouth and then I guess he let everybody know where he was or something. But the Israelis killed him last night. So yeah, they're dropping like flies. So I'm not sure they know who they are talking to, but whoever they're talking to, they've said that yeah, we are talking to the Americans, and they let 10 oil tankers go through the Straits of Hormuz the last 24 hours. So
those were Pakistani flagged, weren't they?
Yeah, they were Pakistani flagged. Yeah. So they are letting that happen. So what's your thoughts, Paul? What do you think before we go here?
Well, I agree with what Ken's saying. The downside of that is you don't want to tell the other team what your goals are and what when you've met them and you're going to quit. Yeah,
at least not how you're going to do that. Yeah,
it's like they'll build a callus around those things and keep everything else stable. So you can't tell them what you're going to do or when you're going to be through. Mm-hmm. The second thing is during World War II, the United States made a pistol called a Liberator. It was a little stamped steel 45 caliber pistol. And it was originally designed to be dropped into France for the resistance to use. The idea was you had 2 bullets in it, enough to kill a German and get his machine gun, and that was the plan.
Really,
almost like when the Russians taught their troops how to run into a battle with no guns and pick up the ones from their comrades that had been killed. But that's something that's part of the big problem right now is the Iranians who want freedom and want to get out from under the imperial or whatever it is, the Iranian Republic. They have no weapons. They've been disarmed, and so you've got to give them the tools to do the job if they want a regime change. So those are the 2 things that I think we need to do is we need to keep our in gold secret. He can write them on a board and keep it covered, and at the end just flip it up and say this is what I said I was going to do, and I did it, and that might protect us from what Ken's worried about, which is a valid concern. And then we gotta arm the people so that they can take their country back. That's my thought.
Yeah. Okay. Well, any other comments? Anything else you guys want to address? Hey, it's really good to see you guys. I'm glad I'm feeling better.
Yeah,
because I was not feeling good, and I'm sorry. I told the guys before you came on, Ken. I apologize for the late notice last week.
Oh no!
But I mean, it hit me like a brick wall. About an hour before the show, said I'm not going to be able to do this.
When I was running for governor of Arizona the first time, so this would have been 2014.
Yeah,
I was driving all over the state, and I was a much younger man now than I was then, and not much, but there was one day I got up ready to go to something down in Yuma, I think it was, and I got hit with vertigo. I'd never experienced vertigo before, and I've never experienced it like that since.
Yeah.
But I was just totally incapacitated. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't take a step forward. I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
So
I spent 3 days crawling to the bathroom one time.
Yeah. Yeah, and it has something to, I've done a lot of research on it. It has something to do with calcium. They call them rocks in your ears, right? They get disturbed or something, and then it starts. You get into that reaction that you get and when I really get it, my eyes start jerking to the side, right? And so it looks like the room, when you try to stare at something, it keeps jumping this way or that way, right? Yeah. And I got real bad nausea from it all. So unless I close my eyes. Yeah, it was terrible.
So we're glad you're here today, Don.
Me too. Yeah, and I appreciate you guys coming on today. And we'll do this again next week.
All right.
Good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, right?
God bless America.
How's your weather been, you guys? Good. I heard it's been pretty hot. Pretty hot down. Yeah. Has it been warm in Prescott, Ken?
Yes, 83 today or something.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, we've been good. We've been 70s, low 80s. So, but I saw where it's been real hot in Phoenix. So, anyway, thank you everybody. We hope to see you next week. God bless America, like Ken says. And this is 4 Men in America signing off. Good night, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Hi, I'm Admiral Brad Cooper, Commander of U.S. Central Command, here with my 5th update on Operation Epic Fury. We're in the 4th week of the campaign and remain on plan or ahead of plan in achieving very clear military objectives for eliminating Iran's ability to project power in meaningful ways outside its borders. U.S. forces have struck more than 10,000 military targets. In fact, we hit the 10,000th Iranian target just hours ago. And if you combine what we've accomplished with the success of our Israeli ally, together we have struck thousands more, clearly demonstrating that we're stronger together. Our precision strikes have overwhelmed Iranian air defenses, and our combat flights over Iran are having tangible effects. Here are a few examples. For decades, Iranian warships have roamed regional waters, threatening and harassing global shipping. But those days are over because we've now destroyed 92% of the Iranian Navy's largest vessels. They're not sailing, and my operational assessment is that they've now lost the ability to meaningfully project naval power and influence around the region and around the world. As we've highlighted previously, Iran's drone and missile launch rates are down by more than 90%, meaning their ability to attack American forces and regional neighbors is drastically reduced. And not only have we significantly degraded Iran's naval, drone, and missile capabilities, we've also removed the regime's ability to rebuild them. Before Operation Epic Fury, Iran had large-scale manufacturing capacities to not only build naval vessels, missiles, and attack drones, but also to advance and proliferate these technologies to regional and global bad actors. Today, we've damaged or destroyed over 2/3 of Iran's missile, drone, and naval production facilities and shipyards, and we're not done yet. We are on a path to completely eliminate Iran's wider military manufacturing apparatus, which is why my operational assessment continues to be Iran's combat capability is declining as U.S. combat capability continues to increase. U.S. forces maintain air superiority over Iran's skies, having now flown over 10,000 combat flights. As I mentioned in my last update, refueling tankers are extending our reach, and fighters and bombers are delivering precise strikes against our primary objectives, executing a high volume of strikes into Iran and demonstrating our unmatched dominance in the air. Now in their 8th decade of flight, our B-52 bombers are executing strikes into Iran with up to 70,000 pounds of munitions on each mission. Our B-52 pilots and aircrew embody the courage and resilience of the more than 50,000 American sons and daughters serving in uniform during this operation. There is no adversary too determined, no mission too difficult, and no task too great for our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians, and Coast Guardsmen. I just could not be prouder of our troops, and I know the American people will share that same pride. Thanks so much. Godspeed.
Now, wait a minute, Jack. This is a friendly celebration. fiddly-dee! I don't much like the way you celebrate.